Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Tuscaloosa. I am Ruth Van Lillian, the minister. We are a covenantal community founded on love and a common devotion to our free faith. As the days lengthen and spring peeks out from behind the robes of winter, let us welcome each other into this virtual space. We especially welcome those visiting with us today. We're so glad you are here. We invite you to connect with us through the comments or on our Facebook page or website. Our mission and ministry are to invite all into a welcoming community, to inspire in all a free and responsible spiritual journey, and to involve all in building a just and peaceful world. We join with all member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association in affirming and promoting the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Black Lives Matter.
Good morning. I'm Steve Borelli. I'm the lay service leader for today. If you want to follow along, you can access our order of service through the link below in the comment section. If you're not seeing the comment section or the link, if you're watching us on a smart TV, for example, you can use YouTube. Go to our UU Congregation of Tuscaloosa YouTube channel through the YouTube app on your PC or your smartphone or your tablet. There's also a number of important announcements in the order of service, so I encourage you to read it carefully. Our church website and Facebook page also have information about upcoming online activities. And finally, we have a listserv that's called NewsNet that members and friends can use to keep up to date on church activities. So we leave no stone unturned in trying to keep everybody up to date. We also invite you after the service, immediately following the service, to an online coffee hour, which will enable us to fellowship with each other and build community. You can see the link for the online coffee hour, again, in the comment section below, or if you're on NewsNet, in the email that you received recently about today's service. The prelude prepares us for today's service.
And we are lighting this morning chalice.
We light the chalice at the beginning of worship to set apart the space for worship. And we invite you at home to light a candle, light a chalice, burn some incense, spray some air freshener, whatever you need to do to set apart this time at home for worship with your community.
We light this chalice as a beacon of our faith and as a reminder of our commitment to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We worship together by celebrating that which is sacred to us individually and collectively.
The opening words are taken from Cosmic Pinwheels, Spiral Galaxies in the Universe, Chapter 11. On Earth, a factory is a place where people or machines manufacture goods or some kind of product. Nothing is produced out of thin air, so a factory needs to have a supply of raw materials to make the items it produces. In order to stay in business, the supply of raw materials has to keep up with demand. A spiral galaxy is a factory that manufactures stars. The raw material that the galaxy uses is the interstellar gas and dust clouds that are scattered across the disk. The machine that manufactures stars is the relentless pull of gravity.
Ye earth-born children of a star, amid the depths of space, the cosmic wonder from afar, within your mind's embrace. Look out with awe upon the heart of countless living things, the counterpoint of part with part, as nature's chorus sings. Ye earth-born children of a star, who seek and long and strive, take humble pride in what you are, be glad to be alive.
When we gather in loving community, we remember that we do not travel this earth alone. We share our lives as we light candles and hold each other in meditative thought and reverence. I will light a candle in my home as you light a candle in yours, and we will observe a moment of silence while you share your joys and burdens in the comments below and engage with each other in celebration and condolences. I will now light a final candle for all those burdens and celebrations shared in our virtual spaces, and for those that went unspoken. May the warm light of these flames bring us peace.
Let's spend a moment of silence together, and I'll close us with a few words. Hope can seem such a fragile thing, and yet, like a pansy in cold weather, it will still show its color, and it will survive and thrive and grow despite the forces that buffet it. Let us have the courage to hope. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be.
Well, hello. This is the children's story for today's service. The story is called "The Gold Is Mine," and it's a superstar story written by myself and younger daughter Katie Crocker Buda. It's a story of villainy and the mistakes of life. So the gold is mine. In a previous story, we learned that Bino and Campo were members of a very close binary star system. They were in orbit around each other and were so close together that they could have conversations anytime. They were brother stars. But because they were members of a very close binary, Bino and Campo were vulnerable to mass transfers that drastically changed their life paths. The result of this is that Bino exploded as a supernova and Campo lost his best friend. But as sad as this story is, it does have some positive aspects. Before Bino exploded, Superstar said to him, "You have a very important role to play. After you explode, your gases will enrich the galaxy with heavy chemical elements. This is a good thing." But somewhere nearby, this conversation caught the ear of Louis the Star Hustler, one of many villain stars Superstar had to contend with in the past. Louis was well known as a confidence trickster, bilking other stars out of their hard-earned Starbucks. He was out of galactic prison on parole, and there he is with a mustache. Louis was well aware that when stars explode, they create chemical elements that they do not ordinarily produce when they are normal stars. One of these elements is gold. When that white dwarf explodes, Louis thought, he will synthesize some gold. When that happens, I'm going to be nearby to collect it all. Unfortunately, the galactic rules say no star is to deliberately stake out a coming supernova. It is dangerous and considered unethical. Sheriff Starhopper knew of Bino's predicament and suspected hustlers would be on hand to get gold. Sheriff Starhopper told his deputy DuPont to watch out for gold thieves. "I'll keep an eye out on them," said Deputy DuPont. Not far away, Louis was working on his gold collecting grid. Soon he was ready for the explosion. Then it happened. Louis was impressed with how effectively his grid was working. His star bucket was filling fast. The intensity of the explosion did not seem to cause him any concern. After filling his bucket, Louis had a plan to evade the sheriff. "I'll stay eclipsed behind Hoss, the red supergiant. Hoss is much bigger than me and likely will not even notice me," he thought. The sheriff asked Hoss if he saw any villains speeding away, and he said he had not. Louis stayed in orbit behind Hoss until the sheriff left. As soon as the sheriff was gone, Louis hid his loot in a thick dust cloud. "No one will see it in here," he thought. He then took some of what he collected to bet on the Star Ponies track. Before the race, he asked if he could meet with the pony owners, because he was interested in owning one himself. The ponies were ready to run. "I'm betting 500 Starbucks in Star Gold and Speedia," said Louis to the Ticket Star clerk. The Ticket Star was suspicious. "No one has ever bet so much Star Gold before," he said to his assistant Tico, but he took the bet anyway. The race went on, and lo and behold, Louis' pony Speedio won. "Wow, I have won 5,000 Starbucks, 10 times as much as I bet." The next race was between 4 cometats. They were comets with cat ears and heads. Louis again visited the owners of the cats and then placed all of his Starbucks on Hissy. 10,000 Starbucks. They were off, and Louis' cometat Hissy won. He won 20,000 Starbucks. Louis was doing so well that the Ticket Star was more suspicious than ever. He said to Tico, "Find Sheriff Starhopper, tell him what's been going on here. What's been happening here." Meanwhile, Louis continued to bet. This time it was a dog star race. After again meeting with the owners, he said 20,000 Starbucks on Slurpo to the Ticket Star, and they were off. And sure enough, Louis won again. This time he won 40,000 Starbucks. Mr. Ticket Star was now really suspicious. Tico soon returned with Sheriff Starhopper, who posed as another bettor by taking off his hat. Tico hid the sheriff's hat. Meanwhile, Louis was delirious with all of his winnings and paid no attention to the fact that they were onto him. He was so confident that when he left to talk to the owners of the next race, he stopped off at his dust cloud and got the rest of his stash. He was planning to go big on the last race. This allowed Ticketstar and Sheriff Starhopper to talk before Louis came back. I think I know what's been happening, said Sheriff Starhopper to Ticketstar. That guy has been rigging the races. He collected a lot of star gold from the supernova explosion and paid the owners off. We can get him by making him lose when he expects to win. They saw Louis returning in the distance. Their chance came with the black hole race. Sure enough, Louis showed up and bet all of his 40,000 Starbucks and remaining gold on the race. I choose Sinisteria, he said, and they're off. The race went on, but Sinisteria did not win. Dark Vader won instead. Louis was angry. He lost all his money, but I paid everybody off, he said. Then he saw Sheriff Starhopper with his hat on and knew he had been tricked. Curses, he thought. That's when Sheriff Starhopper said, Louis, you are under arrest for star gold theft. Just then, Superstar arrived as backup to prevent Louis from getting away. Louis was taken back to Galactic Prison. Afterwards, Superstar met with Sheriff Starhopper and Deputy DuPont. Job well done, he said. Well, Bino put on a good show, said Sheriff Starhopper. At least the gold is recovered and some of it will be used to make a monument in his memory. Okay, said Superstar. See you all later. The end. Until next time.
Touch the earth, reach the sky. Children ask the reasons why. In our lives the answer's sure. And by our love they learn and grow. Out of gratitude for all we have been given and all we have now, we share our resources because we love and trust each other, and because this church enriches our lives and empowers us to make our world better. We rely upon each other, members and friends, and we appreciate the payment of pledges and the generous donations to support the legacy, vision, and work of this church community. Contributions may be made by credit card, by using the link below, or by mailing checks to UUCT. All non-pledged contributions will be divided between our Split the Plate recipient organization and our congregation.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Ron Buda. I'm today's UUCT speaker. And the topic I'm going to talk about is a book that I authored that was recently published by World Scientific Corporation. And the title of the book is Cosmic Pinwheels, Spiral Galaxies in the Universe. And this is what it looks like. A spiral galaxy is a spiral-shaped star system, massive system of stars and interstellar gas and dust. And in color, a spiral-shaped galaxy can look like this. And the color is determined by the kinds of stars it has. A cosmic pinwheel gets its name. It's just a fun term for a spiral galaxy. A pinwheel is a children's toy that rotates in the breeze, and just about everyone has seen a pinwheel. They're fun because when you hold them in the breeze, they spin. A spiral galaxy is kind of like a pinwheel because they spin too. Spiral galaxies also spin. It's just that a spiral galaxy is a much larger object than any toy. It's a much more complex object as well. But the term cosmic pinwheel is just for fun, as a way of describing spiral galaxies. Now let me just say a little bit about the book, without going into too much detail. The book is designed to introduce the reader to the world of spiral galaxies. That is, what it's like to be in that world, to learn about, to be working on the spirals or reading about them, or just learning about them. It's an introduction to that. It's mostly based on my experience for the past 45 years, which is what I've enjoyed working on the spirals myself, and I've enjoyed writing about them, and I've enjoyed seeing them as well. Now, just to put the topic in a little historical perspective, spiral galaxies were discovered as nebulae in the 19th century, and they were first seen with the world's largest telescope at the time in the mid-19th century. The world's largest telescope was a 72-inch reflecting telescope. And in 1845, a man named William Parsons, who was the third Earl of Ross, he pointed this large telescope at a particular nebula in the sky, and he saw spiral arms in that nebula. And he made his discovery before people even knew the nature of the nebulae. They weren't known to be star systems at the time, but he suspected they were, and that was one reason he built the large telescope. So the discovery of spirals goes back to about 175 years ago. Now, there are many reasons why it's worth studying spiral galaxies and worth knowing about them. For one thing, they're stunningly beautiful objects. I've always enjoyed studying the structure, morphology of the spirals. They kept me interested all these years, and I've learned a lot about them. They're just stunningly beautiful objects. They're majestic, magnificent objects, and they're worthy of study. Spirals are important because they were the first galaxies that people were able to determine the distances to. And in fact, it wasn't until around 1924 that people realized that spiral nebulae were actually galaxies, distant galaxies beyond our own galaxy. A century ago, people thought our galaxy was the universe, was the whole universe. But now we know that our universe is filled with galaxies way beyond our own, as far as the eye can see. And the study of spirals led to the realization that we live in a universe that's far bigger than anybody suspected a century ago. Another thing the study of spirals led to was the realization that the universe is expanding, which is very bizarre. The idea that the universe, all the objects in the universe tend to be moving away from each other on average, was a big discovery 100 years ago. And people are still studying that and learning more about the nature of that expansion all the time. And the expanding universe pulled people into a new. It's helped to establish a new field of research called cosmology, which is a study of the structure, origin, and evolution of the universe. Now, another thing that's interesting about spiral galaxies is what kinds of stars make them up. because after all, a spiral is a massive system of stars, interstellar gas and interstellar dust. And the great thing about spirals is that they have all kinds of stars, all possible kinds of stars tend to be a part of a spiral galaxies. You find massive stars, you find low mass stars, you find young stars, you find old stars, you find stars of different colors and things. And you also find that the young stars tend to prefer being along the spiral arms while the old stars don't. And that's an interesting aspect of spiral galaxies, is the kinds of stars that make up the spiral arms. Now, spirals also have another type of material. They have two other types of material, in fact. They have interstellar dust, whose main impact on a galaxy is to extinguish the light of stars seen behind dust. Dust scatters and absorbs starlight and makes objects look further away than they actually are and dimmer. And dust also makes objects look redder than they actually are. But interstellar dust is not the only mysterious material in spirals. There's also spirals were some of the first objects that led people to the realization of the existence of dark matter in the universe. Spirals rotate, and the rotation of a spiral is sensitive not only to the material that we can see in the spiral, but also to the material we can't see. And when people study the rotation of spirals, they realize that there's more there than you can see, and the extra material that you can't see is called dark matter. So spirals are very important for that reason. Another interesting thing about spirals that makes them important is that our galaxy is believed to be a spiral. Now, all spirals tend to be highly flattened, disc-shaped objects that, when seen face-on, look kind of roundish, and when they're face-on, you can see the spiral arms clearly. But when viewed edge-on, you can't see the spiral arms because they're completely foreshortened. You can't see them in the edge-on view, and another reason you can't see them is that the interstellar dust in a spiral galaxy is confined to the plane, and you have to look through the entire dust layer when the view is edge on, and you can't even see the center of the galaxy, the bright center. And our perspective on the Milky Way is an edge-on view, and as a result of all the dust in the plane of the Milky Way, we can't even see the center. And it's very hard to determine the appearance of the spiral arms in our galaxy in the edge-on view. We can't see the arms directly in the edge-on view. However, in other galaxies, spiral arms are traced by young stars, as I've said, and if we could locate the young stars in our galaxy, we could map the spiral arms. And people have done that, and here's a picture of an artistic rendition of what our galaxy might look like face-on, as mostly a two-armed spiral with some weaker other arms. The Milky Way also has a bar, a linear-shaped feature crossing the center that's made almost entirely of old stars. And many galaxies have such things. They're called barred spirals, and our galaxy happens to be one of those. Again, it's not obvious. It has to be inferred because our perspective on the Milky Way is an edge-on view. Spiral galaxies have been seen to very large distances, but if you go out in distance far enough, you don't see so many spirals. You see mostly irregular galaxies. And it turns out that spirals probably evolved from more irregular masses of material. The study of spirals, the study of galaxies at large distances can tell us a lot about how they evolve. There's also another interesting thing about spirals is the presence of supermassive central black holes. These are cool aspects of many galaxies, to have a supermassive black hole at the middle, consuming material falling into the black hole. And many spirals have such a thing. At least 15% of most spirals have 15% of spirals have such things. And black holes are areas where the gravity is so strong that light itself cannot escape from them. And when material falls into a black hole, it can get heated to very high temperatures and emit X-rays. It's a very, very interesting phenomena in spiral galaxies. Well, to conclude, Cosmic Pinwheels has a lot more about spirals than I've been able to mention. But I hope people who do look at the book enjoy learning about the spirals and appreciate some of the significance of studying these objects. Now, one thing I wanted to say, since today is Valentine's Day, is that this subject has had contributions from what we call binary astronomers, and that's a husband and wife team. One such team was William Huggins and Margaret Lindsay Huggins, who in the late 19th century showed that some nebulae were not stellar systems, but were glowing clouds of gas. And that was a very important discovery at that time, because most people thought that all nebulae were unresolved distant star systems, and that wasn't true. William Parsons, the third Earl of Ross, and his wife, Mary, Countess of Ross, contributed to the discovery of the spirals, and Mary Ross was in particular was an expert photographer in her day, in the mid-19th century. Another husband-wife pair are Deborah and Bruce Elmagreen, astronomy pair, Deborah and Bruce Elmagreen, who work at northeastern universities at this time, and who may or may not be retired. I'm not sure. Anyway, they're a pair who have contributed a lot of understanding to the nature of spiral arms and galaxies. And finally, one of the most important pairs in astronomy for me was Gerard and Antoinette de Vaucouleurs, who took me on as a student in the late 70s at the University of Texas, and they taught me how to observe and study galaxies. And I wrote this Astro Valentine in the spirit of Cosmic Pinwheels for the many binary pairs of astronomers. And it goes like this. Dear Valentine, you are the prime focus of my life. Dear Valentine, you are the apple of my eyepiece. Dear Valentine, you are the main event on my event horizon. Dear Valentine, you are the brightest star in my night sky. Dear Valentine, you are the chocolate in my Milky Way bar. Dear Valentine, you are the light of all my universes, yesterdays, and tomorrows. Dear Valentine, you are the galaxy I want to be paired with. Dear Valentine, the day I met you was the only time I look back to. And dear Valentine, I am happy spending my whole main sequence lifetime with you. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Children of the human race, offspring of our Mother Earth, not alone in endless space, has our planet given birth. For across the cosmic skies, countless suns in glory blaze, and from untold planets rise, and canticles of praise. Should some sign of others reach this our lonely planet Earth, differences of form and speech must not hide our common worth. When at length our minds are free, in the clouds of fear disperse, then at last we'll learn to be children of the universe.
Please say our chalice extinguishing words with us.
As we extinguish this chalice flame, let us remember that we carry the light within ourselves, which brings healing to a broken world and hope for the days ahead.
The closing words are from Cosmic Pinwheels, Spiral Galaxies in the Universe, Epilogue. The discovery of spiral nebulae 175 years ago was a monumental event in the history of science. Since that time, we've learned a great deal about spiral galaxies, such as the role they play in star formation, what they tell us about star evolution and death, and how they tell us about the expanding universe we live in. We even have the pleasure of calling a spiral galaxy home. The magnificent appearance of the Milky Way, afforded by a visit to a mountaintop in Chile on a dark night in July, belies a mystique that carries clues to our own origin. Seeing the star clouds in the Milky Way is like looking at something truly ancient and mysterious. It is mind-boggling to think about all that likely happened in the Milky Way since it formed, and that somehow we sprang out of the interstellar gas and dust clouds of the huge galactic disk.